Dude, you are getting well. Dude, welcome. Hello, Tricia.
Ben, I'm so excited to be here with you, dude.
Thank you. It's good to have you here. And for those listeners who are just joining us, welcome. Thank you so much for being here, dudes of all genders and non-binary. We're really grateful and welcome all of you here in this space today about leadership. And it is with super pleasure for me to introduce a international award-winning director, producer, author, and founder of The Big Talk, Tricia Brouk. So Tricia's here. Tricia and I met. I worked for Tricia. I had this incredible. I'm going to say this short story, Tricia. But my wife told me about this amazing woman who she was working for, and my Cassie Fireman was a personal trainer, and we had this. We were both into wellness when we met, and she said, "I think this would be a great crossover. I was trying to get out of the jobs that didn't serve me anymore, and really do what I love and help other people." And I got to meet you, and you have a business called Brouk Moves that was really bringing wellness into people's homes all over New York City. And you hired all these dancers, and you were totally cool with us being creative and having lives outside of this. And then every person I got to meet through that business was full of love and heart, and a lot of elders who I learned from, really, by seeing them take care of themselves, was a great reminder. So that's how I met Tricia. But you're doing so much since then. What are you up to today?
Well, thank you for bringing us together from that moment in time where we first met, and
Yeah.
having you inside of the fitness company was just such a gift. And I love that you use the word elders, right? We think of older adult when we think of the fitness industry. That's sort of what they're called when you're doing older adult fitness. But it's really, you're right. The elders, that's who we learn from. There's the wisdom. That's generationally like how we leave legacy as we become an elder.
Yeah.
So I love that you use that word. That's
Yeah.
really special.
And your company embraces everyone. I mean, I worked with people of all ages there, but that was some of the most special people that stood out to me that I still think about to this day. Like, wow, they were moving their bodies. Because as we all, we all get to age and be with that process. And we're in the fall now, time of things dying and harvest and life. So it's a
Yeah.
really beautiful thing you've embraced.
Thank you. Well, I've always been an entrepreneur. Having moved to New York City to pursue my career as a dancer, that was a natural transition to me to create my own company so that I could have flexible hours. I could make the money I wanted to make and not have to rely on someone else determining how much money I made. And so that company is still in existence. And some of those clients have been with me for 30 plus years.
Wow.
In addition to that, I used my expertise in company building and business to start the Big Talk. And this was purely accidental, Ben. I was financing my documentaries and my plays and musicals and all the things that I do creatively
Yeah.
with the fitness company.
Yeah. Oh
And
wow. And I was watching all of that. I mean, I would go to these incredible productions that you created, and super fun and mischievous and inspiring, and just wonderful. I loved them. So I was really excited. I was like, wow, and now this, and that made perfect sense. It seemed like a really, it's like, oh, of course, I could totally see her doing this. Yeah.
thank you.
So
Thank
what was
you.
that pivot like for you?
Well, the sort of out of the blue accidental starting of the new company
Hmm.
7 years ago was really when one of my friends, she landed a TED stage and she wanted me to direct it. And I thought, oh, well, sure, it's just like a one woman show. We do script analysis, blocking, staging, intention, objective, and action. It's exactly the same thing. That's how I approached it.
Hmm.
And after we worked together, I realized two things. One, it was really inspiring being in the presence of a thought leader who was delivering a talk like that because I'd been around a lot of incredible influencers and actors and people and celebrities and all of that. And what was different though was the message and the way she was delivering the content. So I got to learn from her. It was like I was getting free coaching for 3 months while I was working with her. And I realized, well, this is really different because she's going to deliver this talk and it's going to live on. And the ripple effect of her message in speech form will affect people for the rest of their lives. And they'll talk about it. And those people will talk about it. And those people will talk about it. And that clicked for me, which was, hey, if I'm on a stage, I am limited to the influence because of the number of people in the audience and the length of time I'm on stage. Once it's over, it's over. And sure, they can go talk about it. But I thought that's something that I'm interested in, is like leaving a bigger lasting legacy. And what does that look like? And how does that happen? And I didn't really have the answer. And then she planted the seed that I should do this and that there are actually people out there who want speaker coaches. And I thought, what? That's a thing? People hire coaches? I have no idea what you're talking about. And I had zero online space credibility, Ben. I was not on Facebook. I was not on LinkedIn. Instagram wasn't even a thing yet, really. And so I was in this community and someone said, you should really come into this free training. John Lee Dumas is going to be able to talk to you. And I was like, okay, cool. Didn't know who JLD was at the time. And so he said, just do a podcast.
For people who don't know, will you tell them?
For sure. John Lee Dumas is an epic podcaster. He is Entrepreneurs on Fire, super nice guy. We have since become friends. He's been on my show a couple of times. I've been on his, and he really has mastered the art of podcasting. And he has interviewed everybody. And he is really, he turned his business into this incredible empire through podcasting. And he suggested that I do 3 episodes just to get some sort of credibility. And I thought, okay, that sounds fun. Well, 20 episodes later, I realized, well, I have 400 episodes now, but I did 20 at a time in order to teach people what my process was, which is really directing actors and script analysis and point of view and intention. And I loved it. It was super fun. And so that is what jump-started me into this whole online space. I hired my first mentor and they taught me what I needed to do in terms of my business. And one step at a time, one brick at a time, I committed to amplifying and elevating the voices of others in order to make the world a better place. And here I am with you today.
Wow, what a beautiful story. And what is the big talk for people who haven't seen it and are really aware of it? What is the big talk up to today? What does it look like today? What is that dream? How is that manifested so far?
Thank you for asking. And it has been a combination of intentional manifestation and disciplined strategic action. And yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, the big talk really, it is made up of the Speaker Salon, which happens in New York City, and it is an incubator for speakers. And I modeled this, and you'll know this, Ben. I modeled this after acting workshops and acting companies. When an actor goes through a program, at the end, they perform at a showcase for managers and agents. And so I created the Speaker Salon with the exact same structure, if you will. So every week, the speakers come to the Triad Theater on 72nd Street, where I've produced tons of shows. They literally get on stage, and at the end of those 6 weeks, they perform their big talk in front of influencers, decision makers, producers, people who can book them on stages. And that is just one part of the big talk. And what I realized is not everyone can come to New York every week. And it's also limited to 15 people because I want everyone to be on stage. So when I realized, okay, I have this opportunity to support influencers in this way, how can I do it on a grander scale. And that's when I founded the Big Talk Academy, which is my certification program for speakers. Again, it's a speaker and thought leadership incubator, but it's virtual and it happens twice a year. And it has become a global thought leadership container. We have speakers who are in the academy. We have the academy going on right now, and there's speakers from New Zealand, Singapore, Australia, the UK, Vienna, Vietnam, of course, the US. We have speakers from all over the world who are
Wow.
studying the art of the big talk, which is this process that I have created, which helps speakers learn the techniques on how to write and perform captivating talks.
Sounds great. I remember you saying that before. I was like, where do I sign up? I'm just going to do this. And that week I got like smacked in the face. I forgot it was the anniversary of the like first anniversary of my father's passing, and grief was just, I showed up in the Zoom and it was like, well, boom. And I just was like, maybe I just need to take care of myself this week. And that was like what the big talk gave me, but I can't wait to come back. Because that really has been in my circle lately of speaking, and it's felt like I'm missing in my life that I'm just like sitting here talking on a computer a lot, but to really get out in the world and connect with people on a bigger basis. So
Oh, Ben, you're so
that's
meant to
beautiful.
speak on big stages. I mean, that's
Thank
just
you.
that's the next for you,
Well,
for
my
sure.
dad was a preacher, so I got to give it some props.
Yeah.
But thank you. Yeah, it's where it's the only, place I felt safe in times of my life. And I'm wondering, like, what is all this? I mean, every time I've received some kind of message from you, you're creating something, you're building something, it's in service of something, and so, I mean, I'm assuming, but I have to ask, how does this fill your soul?
Oh my gosh. Yes. And I'm filled with so much emotion just being in receivership of that question because
Mm,
I get up every single morning delighted and
mm,
energized and filled with vitality and love and purpose. And it absolutely is the same as when I was dancing and taking stages, but and that was about me before. How can I be on stage and elevate the audience and take them on a journey? Now I lift up, I hope to lift up everyone that I support in order for them to take stages and to share their powerful messages. And what I've come to know, whether it's a musical that I've written, whether it's documentaries about stories of people who are doing incredible things, or whether it's supporting my speakers, it's all in service of storytelling in order to connect us so that we do not feel alone.
mm. That is powerful, so that we don't feel alone. And you mentioned storytelling and connection. Thank you for that. And I know so many people, especially now. I mean, every day I'm talking to people. I applaud anyone that shows up on any call with me, right? Because it takes courage to reach out, and we're all dealing. We've had the gift of going through I believe a global um, like energy shift in a way through the pandemic has also allowed us to really sit and process together. We all had to slow down together. I mean, some people's lives didn't change if they were working from home and had kids running around the whole time anyway, but there was something that happened, and I feel like it's really helped us see what matters to us. And also some of us, dealing with mental health and um, trying to find purpose or take care of ourselves. Um, so I really hear that this is also like an act of self care for you, that you get to wake up and do this. That it's really it lights you up.
It absolutely lights me up. And I've never thought about the work I do being an act of self care. It is a responsibility. It is a pleasure and a privilege. And because I feel so aligned and so in love with the work I do, it the byproduct is absolutely self-care.
Yeah. So, is there ever a time when, I mean, the way you wake up sounds great to wake up feeling that way all the time. Was there ever a time in your life when you're really, when you weren't waking up feeling that way, when every day felt the opposite, like really challenging? And how did you, what was that like for you?
I want to be super mindful and acknowledge that I have always woken up happy and delighted, and that is not always the case for everyone. So I want to be mindful and intentional when I say, um, I am not, uh, I am unique in that, and I recognize that. I'm definitely a glass half full. I am always seeing the positive and the bright side and coming at everything from a place of love and possibility. What I do know based on my family is that that's not the case. And so I definitely observed and witnessed my family members in the opposite light as me. And so that gave me an insight into having real empathy and compassion for others. And I also work with a lot of actors and I'm in the theater all the time. And folks who are in the theater, they're unique creatures in that they're like the island of misfit toys, and many of them struggle with mental health, limiting beliefs. The reason lots of people go into the theater and into acting and into dancing is because they need to feel seen and heard and loved. And by playing another character, sometimes they can experience that.
Yeah.
So for me, I always wanted to tell those stories and I always wanted to support those people. And um, so I am very fortunate that I always wake up happy and ready to go. And I also acknowledge that that is not always the case for everyone, which is why I make musicals and documentary films about people who are different from me so that I can also tell those stories and learn from them.
I love that. I love that. And so you mentioned, your family was really felt like the opposite. So where did you learn self? I mean, did you learn? What did you have a positive, nurturing environment when you were growing up, or where did you learn positivity or self care? I mean, I know for some people, like I have always been one of the most optimistic people of my friend groups, at least, and yet really struggled with depression and anxiety and like dark, 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 dark mornings. And um, so I'm just wondering, and I know that's not the case. Like, actually, I don't experience that anymore. So I know there are things that work, and I have friends who've just had wonderful childhoods and are just like still beings of light, right? So it's not all about like we're not, you know, being therapists here, but I'm just curious, where did you learn these tools for self-care or to how to love yourself or do what you love? So many of us also didn't have permission to even be creative growing up, right?
This is from being a dancer. And I know for a fact that had because I became obsessed with being the best dancer ever and moving to New York City to pursue a career, I was driven, tenacious, disciplined, risk averse. And my dance teacher, Sharon McGuire, believed in me.
Mm,
And so all of my extra time was spent at the studio. And I have to say, I don't know how I bypassed all the negative stuff that comes with being a dancer, like too fat, too skinny, not tall enough, all the things. I just never had time for it. I just
mm,
had to, I was doing plies, I was rehearsing. So I didn't have time to think about how I looked in comparison to other dancers. And I do remember I was at Texas Christian University. I got a scholarship for their summer program. They had a great dance program there. Um, I mean, I danced the solo in Firebird and Swan Lake and Giselle. It was amazing. I was on
Wow.
point like 10 hours a day. And
Wow.
I remember I was there with one of my best friends from my dance school, and there was this other gorgeous dancer there. And the three of us kind of got chummy. And I remember we were at Wendy's, and I used to get chocolate frosted with a side of French fries. And
Yes.
I think we all got that.
Yeah,
And
I did too.
yeah, and one of the girl, the third girl, not my best friend, she ate it all, went to the restroom, excused herself, and came back. And I didn't even put it together why she was going to the restroom right after she ate. And then the next day in ballet class, the ballet mistress literally walks past us, and she's like doing a one over, making sure that we're perfectly turned out from the hips, not the knees. And I remember her stopping at this one beautiful dancer and saying, "You're losing weight. You look wonderful." And I thought to myself, that is so effed up. So somehow I did not succumb to all of the things that dancers can succumb to because of my tenacity and my grit and my belief in self. And I'll share this with you. When I was at auditions, I don't know where this came from, Ben, except that I knew I had something to contribute. And so when I was at auditions, you know how everybody gets a number? You go across the floor, you do the choreography many, many times, you're exhausted, they call the numbers. And I remember more than once being in auditions where I didn't hear my number. So I raised my hand. Could you call those numbers again? I'm pretty sure I didn't hear mine. They didn't call my number. But I was convinced that they forgot to call my number, and I just wanted to make sure. So I was so confident because I just knew in my heart that I had something to contribute as a dancer and that I would work hard. I would be a contributor, a collaborator, a team player. Like I would show up early and leave late. How could you not call my number? How could you not know this?
Yeah. So you were just bored with that tenacity?
I really was.
That's awesome. That's great. And how wonderful that you found something that served that. Where did you grow up, by the way?
I grew up in Arnold, Missouri.
Arnold, Missouri. Well, I've never met anyone from Arnold, Missouri. Well, apparently I have. I just didn't know it.
Yes,
Right. So what had you did you start dancing? How old were you when you started dancing?
I
Did
was
you come
7.
out of the womb dancing?
No,
No.
unlike many dancers, I was not aware that dancing was a thing.
Mm.
And I was a bluebird, which is the precursor to, no, I was a bluebird, which is the precursor to brownies, which is the precursor to Girl Scouts. And,
Ah, yeah. I remember hearing about bluebirds. Okay.
and I was a bluebird. That's the thing. And then my sister at the time was 4, and she was a pink poodle dancing on stage. And I remember being in the audience thinking, wait a minute, I want to be on stage. I didn't want to be a pink poodle, but I knew I wanted to be on stage. And that's when I said, I want to go to dance school. And my parents said, you have to choose. You can be a bluebird or a dancer. You can't do both. And I said, bye bye, bluebirds.
Wow. And then you flew.
Oh, that's so sweet, Ben.
That's great. So how have you learned to take care of yourself while being so creative? Have you had structure? How have you developed discipline? And if it's been easy for you, maybe how have you helped other people do that who haven't had it?
Well, discipline and structure is, let's reframe that. It's not easy, it is a practice.
Like
And
a muscle, right?
it's just like doing your plies. In order to succeed, there must be repetition. And so for me, I have a very skillful ability to focus for long periods of time. I don't get distracted easily. And the first time I learned that about myself when it came to creativity, aside from being able to rehearse and stay focused in a rehearsal process all day long, was when I wrote my first play. And I was a dancer for many years. Then I transitioned into choreography for film, television, and theater. And I then started working with producers who wanted me to direct shows that they had attached to with other writers. And part of being a director is that you're extremely organized and you cast well. Seriously, anybody can be a good director if they know how to organize, lead, and they cast well. Because all it is getting out of the way of your talented actors and making sure everyone feels like they're safe in the space. Would you agree?
Yeah, that definitely helps. Yeah.
Then all of a sudden, I had these producers saying, you should really direct a show about 50 Shades of Grey, because I had just directed and choreographed a burlesque show at the Triad. And I thought, what? I have zero interest in reading that book. I have zero interest in a, a, a play about a college student who doesn't have a computer, has never had sex, and lets her boyfriend beat her. I had zero interest in that. And
Hmm.
the producer said, yeah, but you just did this beautiful, hilarious burlesque show that's really funny. What if you parody it? Google parody. And I thought, well, okay, let's see if I can write a musical. And I remember almost being embarrassed that I bought the book, read it. It was the easiest thing in the world to parody because of how ridiculous it is. So I sat down and wrote the parody musical, the book of 50 Shades of Grey, in 10 days. And the first draft.
Wow. Yeah.
And I reached out to my friend, Andrew David Sotomayor, who is an incredible lyricist composer. And I said, let's write a musical together. Can you musicalize this? And he said, I would love to. And we collaborated. And I remember our first reading, this was before Zoom was a thing. He was in Florida visiting his mom, and he remoted in. I had my phone connected to a speaker, and he was playing the music, and my actors were doing the reading, and we thought we had something. So again, back to being an entrepreneur, I self-funded this production, which was ultimately called, can I curse on this show?
Yes. Yes, you
It
may.
was it was ultimately called 50 Shades of Fucked Up. And we produced it, and the actors performed it at the Triad Theater for like 3 months to sold out audiences. And I'll never forget
And I
learning
was
that,
in that audience one night. That was
oh my
great.
gosh. Oh
Yeah,
my gosh.
that's the last performance I remember, I think, seeing of yours. I was like, this is so creative and fun. What had her do this, you know? So now I know why.
Well, and
It's like,
going
wow,
back
she
to
must
the,
have really been in this 50 Shades thing, you know? It was like a hot thing at the time, and I was just like, this is ridiculous. So we were like an absolute yes when we heard there's a parody of it. We're like, we're in. That's great. And it's Trisha. That's awesome.
oh, well, thank you. And back to the creative focus, I was excited about it. And there's an urgency with which I like to create, so that it's almost like it just comes out of me rapidly, and I need to capture it. And then I go back and fix it.
Mm,
Right. So I'm not
yeah.
trying to be perfect the first time. I'm trying to get it out because it comes quickly. It
Hmm.
literally comes through me at a rapid pace.
That's how
And if
you
I'm,
channel.
yes, and if I'm not
Mm,
there with my butterfly net catching it, but then I miss all of this amazing gold. So I get it out as fast as possible. And that requires focus and drive and organization. And then I go back and give myself the time that it takes and needs to really fine tune things. And, I didn't just write the first draft and we put it up on its feet. There were a lot of iterations. There were a lot of adjustments. A lot of songs got cut. A lot of adjustments based on what I thought was funny alone in my room, and what was actually funny in a room full of actors who could take it and turn it into something that was alive. Um, I think that part of the self care there was knowing how to get up every hour, literally, because I could stay focused on my final draft document for 8 hours and not eat or drink or get up. And so that's something that
Mm.
as a dancer, I require. I require constant movement. I require hydration. I require all of those things. And I have dialed in my self care and my productivity to the next level now. I mean, this was many years ago, but now the self care that I require is, many would call excessive. But for me, at the level with which I need to show up for myself, my family, and my clients, it's guaranteed. My self care is absolutely required.
Mm. Mm. What does it look like today? What is your routine today? Would you share it with us?
I'd love to. I also start with the caveat I don't have children. And that
Mm.
is a really important acknowledgement to all the parents out there who are managing children of all ages
Yeah.
and caring for them and getting them to school and homeschooling, all the things. So let's
Yeah.
just be really clear, I don't have children.
Disclaimer.
Yes. I get up at 4 a.m. and I create a sacred space in my home, which is I water the plants, I cut fresh flowers, I take care of my girls, which are Lola and Bella, my two cats, and I am in the space for the day. Then I meditate, I work out, I journal, and I don't see clients or take meetings until 11 a.m. And I am extremely protective of that time. It's really, really important that I am in the right mindset in those mornings for me to be as creative and as productive as I need to be. And people are always saying, "You're so busy. How do you get it all done?" I'm organized. We all have the exact same amount of time.
Mm.
I
In fact,
just
you have like an extra 7 hours in the morning, so you actually have a lot of time,
right, right.
right? That's
It,
awesome.
and for those of you who are listening and watching, if you give yourself 10 minutes, that can be your sacred time. So many of
Mm.
us forget to give ourselves any time. We're like out of bed and immediately taking care of everyone else. When if you would sit up, ground yourself, and take care of yourself first, you would be able to take care of everyone else 10 times better.
Mm. And even maybe feel better doing it. Not so depleted at the end. I think that's really important. I can't stress that enough. I mean, I love that you said that because that's most of what I see even in high performing entrepreneurs is like just always the grind, the productivity. We're working more hours than ever statistically because we have our phones and screens on all the time. And so those and we have abilities like we're training ourselves to literally sit and do that all day. So the fact that you mentioned taking breaks, hydrating, moving, like I'm at a standing desk where I can pop up on a stool or stand in between. So I realized like why am I hurting all the time? Oh, I've been sitting more. So I love that you said moving, right? And that you like I also don't take clients before 11 a.m. So a big shout out to that self-care time. I also don't have children yet. And even if you do, I have parents and fathers have started waking up 10 minutes earlier and their lives are changing because it's like, oh, I had a moment to myself. And they could actually think about what's important to them and breathe and nurture themselves a little bit. And because we don't have, there's no one else. So if you don't take care of yourself, no one else is going to do that for you, especially if you're a caretaker. And I believe connecting with others can be regenerative if we've taken care of ourselves, right? Because otherwise, that busyness, like your people think they see in your life, can sound depleting, but it's actually you've really sounds like you've built a regenerative lifestyle. Like you love waking up, you get to have time for yourself and with others.
Absolutely. And I like the word you're using, the regenerative lifestyle. I think that's possible for everyone
Mm.
if and when they become conscious of that. And they also give themselves permission and acknowledge that they deserve it.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say, what's the access to that? Like for people who feel like they're like, oh, I don't know how to do that. Where do I start?
Well, I think it literally starts with giving yourself permission. I deserve to have 10 minutes to myself at the beginning of every single day. And then ask your partner, if you live with somebody, roommate, partner, spouse, ask them to support you in that,
Mm.
right? So I would like to start my day in 10 minutes of silence. Please don't ask me to do anything or give me a to-do list the first 10 minutes of my day, right? We can ask for help in the support of that.
Yeah, it's really, really great. And if your partner's like, well, what am I going to get? Well, you can have 10 minutes to yourself too, right? Or maybe we take turns and then I'll
Right.
jump in and you can have 10 minutes. And so just really looking how we can support each other too. I love that you said that. And ask for people supporting yourself. That's really key. Um, I had another I had an instinct to ask you about people who are have a voice and they know they want to say something. There's a really great, we're in this, I feel like a renaissance time almost, like post pandemic, where we're can be creative and there's all these ideas popping and we can create our own businesses now and our own brands and things like that. For those of us, for the people listening who weren't performers or for whom this isn't natural, but they know they have something to say or they want to find their voice. Now that you've been leading so many speakers and coaching, holding those spaces, what would you say are some steps or access to people starting to embrace their voice or find their voice?
I think I would like to highlight for the listeners and the viewers that everyone has a powerful story and everyone has the opportunity to be an influential voice. And that could be as simple as being across the kitchen table from your kids, being at the front of a classroom as a teacher, being across the boardroom table from your team, or being on a big stage and sharing your powerful message with an audience of 15,000. Every single one of us has an influential voice. And when we recognize the responsibility that comes with that and the urgency with which to share it, that's when we start having impact. And when I wrote my book, The Influential Voice, Saying What You Mean for a Lasting Legacy, I really wanted to give people an opportunity to identify their purpose, values, and mission first so that they can be clear about what they care about. And then they can begin to align how they share with that purpose, values, and mission. Because if you are clear on your why and what it is you've got going on and what you care about, you will always stay aligned as a speaker, as an influential voice, as a communicator. And again, every single thing you say has an impact. The word choices you use matter. They can influence someone. And at the height of the pandemic, like the absolute place of chaos and uncertainty, I was going to the grocery store at 5:30 in the morning because it was open 24/7 and I knew no one else would be there.
Mm-hmm.
So I would put on my mask, my gloves, I would calm myself down because there was so much chaos and stress in New York at the height of this, as you can imagine. And I also wanted to go to the grocery store and get out of the house and to have an activity that was consistent. And Pamela, the checkout woman, who was in full hair and makeup, lashes, mask, nails, the whole thing, every time I would show up at her checkout area, her station, we would laugh, we would talk, and she would say, "You making enchiladas tonight? I think you need another avocado. Let me go get it for you." She was an
Oh.
influential voice to me. She made me feel seen. She made me feel connected to humanity. She will never know that I'm talking. Maybe she will. I'll invite her to the podcast. But she was such an influential voice to me. And all
Oh.
she did was see me and
Mm.
share her experience of what was happening in the present moment
Mm.
with me. That is
Mm.
why anybody and everybody can be an influential voice. And the ripple effect and the love and the ability to save someone's life by sharing with them is absolutely possible.
I love so much for that, Tricia. And what really resonated too is just in being a space for someone else to listen for their voice too. And that you are that space. I was remembering I heard the siren and I was like, "Oh, New York, I miss it." That was the soundtrack of New York, and I was thinking about, the all of the unhoused people on the streets and the people that are choosing to live there or live there by mental illness or drugs that or poverty or whatever. Just I was so fascinated by those people. I wanted to know who they were and their stories. And there was oftentimes as a student there that I couldn't, I didn't have money, but I just would like shake their hand or say hi and look at them or smile. And I realized one day, like, oh, maybe that is way more than just $1, just acknowledging them. If I can't give them, right? And that's what you said, we all just want to be seen, heard, felt, acknowledged.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate that you share those things and those reflections of how we can be a voice just in our own home and that be enough. And, practice honing our voice there and being really intentional with it, right? You
Yeah.
mentioned really choosing how we speak to ourselves, about ourselves and other people. So,
Absolutely. And I'll also share that when the book came out and was literally going to be in the hands of other people,
mm.
I
When
thought to
was that?
myself, that was April 21st, 2021, April
Oh, wow.
27th, 2021.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. So, right. Oh, wow.
The
Cool.
concept of the book and all of that, that was amazing. I was excited and super confident and all the things. But the moment I knew people would actually be able to read it, I thought to myself, oh no, I can never have a fight with Joe again. Because I just wrote this book about being an influential voice and how important your words are and that, how to use them for good. And that's when I realized, wait a minute, this is not about being perfect.
Yeah.
This is about being conscious.
Mm,
And I ask for do overs all the time with my husband. I ask for do overs with my team.
mm,
It's about being conscious and knowing that if you have chosen a word that wasn't the best, that you go back and you say, I wanted to just let you know that wasn't my best version. I'd like to try that again. Would that be
mm,
okay with you? And
mm,
I'm not saying you shouldn't say you're sorry, but don't lead with the apology. Lead with, I'd like to try that again. I know I can do better.
mm. I love that. And what a kind way to speak to yourself too, not just shaming yourself, right? Or being righteous too. Um, so thank you for that. Well, normally I would love I wanted to take a moment to this point in the show anyway to talk about what you have going on now other than the big talk. We've got that up. I just posted the link for your book, so people can get that online. And you mentioned there was something that you wanted to offer the listeners and viewers as well.
Absolutely. I'd love to give you chapter 1 of the book for free. And if you
Ooh.
go to the influentialvoicebook.com/chapter, you can grab that first chapter on purpose, value, and mission. And if you love the book, go ahead and buy it and read it. I also recorded an audio version where my lyricist composer, who I just mentioned, Andrew, he scored the book. So there's
Ooh,
an
cool.
original score to the book as well. I'm super proud of the audiobook.
Awesome. Oh, I love that. I can't wait to hear it. It's going to be inspiring for me, I'm sure. So I put the link up for that too, so you can get that chapter. And for the big talk, it's thebigtalk.com, right?
Thebigtalk.com. Actually, it's thebigtalkacademy.com.
Got
It
it. Big
is,
Talk Academy.
and it's also theartofthebigtalk.com. And that's a masterclass that I have coming up in February. And it's a 2-day masterclass from 10 to 4. It's virtual, but you'll have an opportunity to learn how to land on a big idea, get some coaching from me. And it is an incredible 2-day event.
Yes. Okay, cool. I'm going to put that there too. And when is that coming up? Do you know when the next one is?
February 3rd and 4th. Yeah.
Ooh, okay. Yeah. All right, great. Oh, right. Yeah, that's when it was last year when I had signed up. So you do it seasonal almost like or by
Twice a
twice a
year.
year.
Yeah, we do it twice a year. It's right before the Big Talk Academy, so anybody who comes to to the masterclass gets an opportunity to see how I work and
Mm,
see if it's a good fit. It's $47.
that's awesome. Yeah, that's great. And so if something comes up in your life, it's you just invested $47. That's fine. Um, you what else was I gonna ask you about that? Oh, when is the other one? So February, and was there one that just happened?
We have one in February and in August. So the one in
August.
August
Oh,
just happened. Yeah. And the
neat.
speakers, the Big Talk Academy is happening right now. And the virtual showcase for that will be on December 9th, which is free and anybody can attend. So it's super fun. If you opt into my list by grabbing the free chapter, you'll
Hmm.
get emails about the virtual showcase and you can actually watch live the speakers perform and I'll give them feedback live. It's really special.
Oh, cool. That sounds great. I'd love to see that too. I love watching people work in their process, so that's really fun. It's really nice. I appreciate you putting that there and for us to see how you work and that you're generous and we can share those things with each other too. And oh yeah, I got a couple other closing questions. The other one, so we have all these links up, so that's all there on our page, on my site. It'll be, and when this goes live, we'll share it out. So if you haven't subscribed already to our podcast, do so there so that you don't miss any of this information when this episode goes live. I think it'll be next week, in the next week or two. And I've already asked you about your self care routine, which is usually the first part. The other one is kind of a fun one. If your life was a Hollywood film and you got to, it was a blockbuster and you got to name it, what would the title be?
The title would be Everything's All Right.
Mm, I love that. Oh, I love that. And if your partner, Joe, is that his name? And if
Yeah.
Joe were to title it, what do you think he would call
Everything's All Right too.
it? Good man, Joe. Okay.
Like part two, not
Yeah,
also.
yeah, yeah,
He
yeah.
loves
That's
Sister he loves Sister Act 2, so that's why I came up with that title.
oh well, he and I would probably love hanging out then. That's great.
For sure.
Um, and then if oh my gosh, I lost one. Okay. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So I was like, this is one of my favorite questions. So since you're great at casting, who would you cast as your parents in this film of your life?
I would cast Anne Mura and Jerry Stiller.
Oh wow,
And
that's
the
great.
reason why is because when I first moved to New York and I was working at a restaurant called Pazzo, I did an infomercial with them and they were like my parents. And like my parents, meaning they were so sweet. Sit down, have some soup. You're a dancer? Tell me more about your life. Honey, we'll shoot in a minute. I just want to talk to Tricia before we shoot. It
That's
was
great.
spectacular. So that's who I would
Wow.
cast.
Oh, God bless them. And
They've
they
both
both passed
passed.
away.
Yeah,
Oh
they've both
wow.
passed.
And that's so beautiful. And if you were to give the world, if you were to give the world one gift today, what would that be? If you could give the world anything.
I would give the world access to love, inclusion, dignity, humility, and grace.
Hmm. And if we had all of those things, um, action, love, humility, grace, and something other else beautiful you said,
If
what do you see us all doing if we had that gift now?
we would make the changes we need in the infrastructures and policies in order to reverse climate change, we would have a new political system where it wasn't black or white, right or wrong. We would be able to solve food insecurity we would be able to address our impact that we've had on this planet with awareness and not ignorance.
Hmm. Wow. Thank you for that gift and that possibility right now that we've created and that you've created here with all of us. So now that more ears have heard it, may it actualize. And do you have any parting words you want to leave our listeners with, or anything you want to share that we didn't get to talk about?
I just want to thank you for creating this platform of conversation and showing up so vulnerably and lovingly and being an amazing host,
Mm.
and just reminding everyone who's listening and watching that your voice matters.
Mm. Thank you so much, Tricia. And thank you for giving yourself and your time so generously here today. We are so grateful. It's really a beautiful contribution, and it's so wonderful to connect with you again. I love what you're up to. I will stay in your circle. I get all your emails. So if you're not following Tricia, please do. And what else do I want to say before we go? Oh, yeah. Would you give our listeners a dude, you're getting well? Would you say that for us?
Of course.
Okay, great.
Dude, you ready?
Yeah.
Dude, you're getting well.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, thank you so much, Tricia Brouk. Thank you, everyone, and have a beautiful, beautiful day. Go raise your voice.